as we start this, nag-usap lang kami ni Justice Carpio. We're hoping to launch a new series, a sub-series together. First of all, on our side, yung FYI series natin, parang voter education series. So hopefully, with our friends in the College of St. Benilde LaSalle School of Government and Public Policy, we want to have a series of discussions starting next week. Kasama natin si Secretary Ronald Llamas and soon also Justice Carpio among other luminaries. And of course, our great guest today, Justice Carpio, the luminary. Kamusta, Justice Carpio? Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me again, Richard, and good evening to our viewers.
And Justice, you were saying, I mean, are you in a position to say something about your project that you had in mind so that people have something to look forward to?
Yeah, we're planning the Academia Filipino will come out with a series of podcasts, and we will invite people like you to be co-hosting it uh, with others. So it will be a very serious discussion.
Definitely. Thank you so much. So we can do a joint production. I'm more than happy to help
Yes.
Justice as the youngest member of the Filipino Academy. Like, ayan na naman tayo magpaparin. Marami na magagalit sa akin. Justice Carpio, before we go to really serious issues, gusto ko balikan itong issue ng Sara impeachment again because there are multiple interpretation. Kanina lang I was with attorney, now USEC, Claire Castro. We had some discussion about the Sara impeachment issue. Obviously, she represents the Malacanang, and the Malacanang position is clear. Wala silang kinalaman dyan, and BBM also already said a lot about this. So I wanted to also get your point of view on the on what she's Escudero. Kasi may sinasabi na si Cheese Escudero since last time we spoke together. And since last time, of course, Justice Carpio, natapos na yung Paris Fashion Week. So medyo nakabalik na yung ibang senators. There's also a lot to discuss. My goodness, our good friend Donald Trump, even worse than we thought, apparently, he berated Zelensky. And my goodness, in South Korea, they're talking about getting nuclear weapons themselves. In France, they're talking about total independence. Friedrich Merz, the incoming Chancellor of Germany, is openly talking about independence from the US. So a lot is moving. So in many ways, na-vindicate yung discussion natin. But Justice, before we go to all of these important issues, let me tell you, I don't know, mapapamak. I asked kanina, and we ended on this note last meeting kasi hindi na-record. So I want to get this right off the bat. Kanina lang, nagpa-update ako, no? So actually, dalawang taong pina-update ko. One with General Torre in CIDG last week. We had the live with him in his office. And kanina lang with, of course, Attorney Claire Castro. The question of the century. And as Senator Rizzo Ontiveros said, for heaven's sake, where in the world is Harry Roque? So the latest, we have geolocation, we have justice is Macau. Very pogo, very casino. Have you heard anything
Yeah.
along those lines ng
Yeah, well, I
Macau?
read that he was about to enter China.
Yeah.
That is it was the last seen, or he was supposed to be in China
Oh
this
my.
time, no? So I really don't know because these are not none of this is verified.
Nasunog na tayo dun sa ICC last year. But I'm just saying, on the record, sinabi ng mga kaibigan natin, most likely nasa Macau siya. Baka mag-abutan kami sa Buao Forum later this month. Justice, if I'm gonna disappear for a while, that means I'm in China, right? Hopefully just for a while lang. But going back to this, Justice. So I asked General Torre, I said, base sa analysis namin ni Justice Carpio, mukhang ang game plan, ito yung dream scenario ni Harry Roque, right? Ang dream scenario ni Harry Roque, he will wait out the 19th Congress, make the show cause order mutan academic, and then he comes back like the comeback queen. Comeback king, right? And he's gonna be the lead defense lawyer of Sara Duterte in the Sara impeachment. Sorry, Panelo. Sorry, and then, sorry, Jimmy. Yung mga ganon. And then, siya na mag-star. And then from there, siya yung maging J.D. Vance, basically, of Sara Duterte.
Oh, ano sila, mag-team up sila.
Exactly. Magja-J.D. Vance of the Philippines siya. So, bigla sinabi ni General Torre, madali lang naman solusyon yan eh. Hintayin lang namin, may warrant of arrest for any other case. Arrestuin pa rin namin siya. Wala kaming pake kung may quadcom or hindi. What is your read of that? Should the PNP and other agencies make sure na hindi lang yung quadcom at show cause order issue? Because the whole pogo and all of those things, right? Pwede na siyang kasuhan for that, di ba? And warrant of arrest potentially.
Yeah, they can start the preliminary investigation, and they can file it in court, and the warrant of arrest can be issued.
And are you optimistic or I don't know if you're in a position. Do you think that should be done? Kasi baka makalusot siya otherwise, Justice. Sorry to
Well,
put you
well,
under.
I really don't know what kind of charges they will file, no?
Yeah.
So,
But potentially, given yung involvement with the Pogo, I mean, what are we looking at? Like accomplice to certain crimes? What? Abetting criminal groups? I mean, potentially, ano mga cases na
well,
pwede nila
because
i-file?
he was the counsel, maybe he could be considered a principal, no?
Oh, right. So that's serious enough. So it looks
Yeah.
like tuloy ang manhunt. Tuloy ang manhunt. Um, Justice Carpio, marami tayong pag-usapan today. Speaking of course, kanina with Attorney Claire Castro, Yuse Castro, we also went back to the issue of Sara impeachment. Obviously, I understand because she represents the Malacanang, she has to more or less reflect the position of Malacanang. Pero sabi ko sa kanya, sige na nga, mag-Harry Roque style ka. Remember, Justice Carpio, yung may times na si Harry Roque, let me say this in my private capacity, not as spokesman of Duterte. Di ba may mga moments siya? So ginagano ko si Attorney Cas. Attorney Cas, bilang isang abogado, ano masasabi mo? But in fairness naman to her, I think she was still fair in terms of reflecting yung position of Malacanang. And of course, respect for separation of powers. But the argument I heard, for instance, from her side, and there are a couple of other lawyers I've heard who made this argument, which is yung ating saligang batas ay hindi super klaro na parang clear cut dun sa issue na kung hindi in session ang Senate, anong gagawin mo dito to put a quorum together to get a trial going. What is your reading in terms of supposed gaps, constitutional gaps? Is that also your reading of the Constitution, Justice?
Well, the word used is forthwith. They shall proceed with the trial forthwith. And of course, it means immediately. But the way I understand it to mean is that as soon as reasonably possible, because in the previous two impeachments of Corona and Estrada, there was a gap of about 1 to 2 months. So more or less, we can accept that. But I think, as I said before, 5 months is rather too long.
Yeah.
Uh, and this is not part of the legislative work. They operate as a court, as an
Yeah.
impeachment court. So they should be able to proceed to organize.
So paano yung quorum? How do you force the senators to show up? Because Bato was coming with this excuse na, paano kami? Nasa gitna kami ng election, busy kami, hindi mo naman kami pwedeng pilitin na hakakutin mo kami dyan. Paano yung ganun, Justice? Like, how does the Senate President put a quorum together to get a trial going? Or at least get the basic quorum to get the procedural discussions going?
Well, there are 12 senators who are not running, so they only need one or two. No, one will be sufficient to have a quorum.
Oh, ganun
So,
pala?
of the-
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, so you don't need the entire gang to be there.
Yeah, you need only a majority to have a quorum.
Right.
So they can really proceed. And the first thing they should do is to, as I said before, is to amend their rules because they want to adopt the judicial affidavit rule. And they don't even need to organize as an impeachment court to do that because
Yeah.
every Congress, after every 6 years, when when a new set of 12 senators come in, they actually
Right.
readapt their impeachment rules, even without anybody being charged with for impeachment. So they can do it also. They can amend it,
Interesting.
and they can authorize Cheese, the Senate President, to issue all the summons for Sara to answer and for
Yeah.
the prosecutors to file a reply and for both the prosecution and the defense to submit judicial affidavits. So, ang daming magagawa
Right.
and they don't have to meet as an impeachment court to do this because the impeachment rules will authorize now the presiding officer, that's the Senate President, to issue in the meantime all of these preparatory orders.
So now I see ano yung magiging excuse ni Bato because all you're saying is 12 are not running so wala silang excuse unless they wanna attend the Milan Fashion Week, New York Fashion Week, Paris Fashion Week, Autumn Fashion... Okay. Alam na ng tama yung reference point ko. So ang magiging excuse ni Bato, si Justice Carpio, advance ako mag-isip is, hindi nga kami nakapunta doon, madaya yung rules nyo kasi nandun kami, nagrarally kami or nagka-campaign kami. So what you're saying is that all you need is just one, for heaven's sake, ilan ba yung member ng alyansa ni BBM, right? Na siguro naman, dapat they're on the right side of history on this issue, right? Kahit isa lang sa kanila magpakita, okay na yan, di ba? In theory. But
Yeah,
apart,
because Cheese can
excuse
draft
me.
the amendments and then call one session for the senators to approve it. You need only 13 to have a
Right.
quorum, and they can adopt it. And he will be delegated to do all of those preparatory work. So all the rest can campaign.
Well, I mean, if there's one thing I ever agreed with Coco Pimentel was this comment na shinare ba ni DJ Chacha, like, only in the Philippines it takes, what, 1 month to interpret what a single word means, no? Yung forthwith. Sabi ko, buti nga 1 month baka one season, fashion season. Speaking of fashion season, what is your read of Jesus Cadero's explanation? I don't know how to say it. I mean, basta the whole Cheese Escudero press conference on this. Kasi sa totoo lang, Justice, parang I got confused even more after going through that. And he was even citing Miriam Defensor as the precedents. I mean, don't we have enough precedents in the case of the US impeachment cases, not only Trump, ang dami, di ba yung jurisprudence sa US relevant lang sa atin? And is the Miriam Defensor's argument, was it properly contextualized? I mean, Miriam is not around to defend herself, right? But do you think that was a fair reference point, what Miriam was saying vis-a-vis the ERAP case, the impeachment of ERAP?
Well, I think it's rather simple to interpret forward. There's Black Law Dictionary, there's the Webster Dictionary, and I think it has to be as soon as reasonably possible. That's
Right.
the most liberal interpretation. Others would say immediately, kaagad. But I would give a little leeway as soon as reasonably possible. But of course, using the previous impeachments, it's about 1 to 2 months. I think that's enough already.
I remember one of the aspects of the late Miriam Defensor's intervention was the issue of quantum of evidence. Are we clear about the issue of quantum of evidence? Obviously, it's not the same quantum or threshold used in the usual court, right? It should be a bit lower, but how much lower than the normal threshold or quantum? Are we clear about that, Justice Carpio, from a
Well,
precedence and
well,
constitutional point of view?
there is no standard that has been set for impeachment because they say it's a political exercise.
Right.
So as long as you have the votes,
Diyan talaga magrereklamo si Bato. Wait, wala kami, di ba? Wala kami, kailangan namin. Yeah, but, so, I know you're being nice, Justice. So, in short, are you saying nagpupusit games lang ng Senate President natin? Or, ipit lang talagang kamay na and he has to play the pusit game? I don't know how to put it nicely, to be honest.
well, there is a pending case now before the Supreme Court. I think the Supreme Court will rule on that soon. So there will be a resolution here, and that will be the new jurisprudence, no? If the court
Yeah.
will say, oh, you have only 1 to 2 months.
So basically, that's position of Tolentino, right? Francis Tolentino. Yung tatlo na yung Masters of Law niya, pero yung fourth week niya, ayaw pa rin niya i-define. But, mga pang-usapan yan. Speaking of Supreme Court Justice, there are a couple of questions we have. Obviously, the most urgent one is yung etong oral arguments as they happen vis-a-vis, of course, our favorite issue, Philhealth. Yung mga ka-DDS natin, nasasabihin naman nila, puro kayong Sara, impeachment. Naka 24 episodes na nata tayo, Justice, kasi yung 7 episodes natin na slice ko into 24. So, very Ilocano. So, I literally have 24 episodes discussing the Philhealth issue. So, episode 25 na to, Justice Carpio. What are the latest arguments you are hearing? What is your reading of these arguments, and what is your sense of the direction and Sana, kailan ba tayo magkaroon ng ruling sana dito? Do you think it should come earlier than later, right?
Well, I think there will be one more. There is one more oral argument scheduled, and I think that will be the last
When is
because
that? The last, when will be the next last one?
I forgot the date.
That'll be fun end
But
of the month, Justice?
yeah, I think before the end of the month. Yeah.
So we're hoping
So
April there will be decision?
well, well, uh, we cannot. It's up to the court really, but
Yeah.
I think they will. They will maybe give them 2 months to 3 months to write the decision and discuss it.
Ah, right. So after
But
elections na
the
yan.
what happened in the last oral argument is
Yeah.
that the issues have become very clear. We're focusing now on the return of the 60 billion, and it's also clear that the Philhealth is not in a good shape financially. That these are reserve funds, and if they are reserved,
Yeah.
it says what it says reserved for a special purpose. You cannot use it for any other purpose. So I think we
Right.
we as petitioners are confident that we will get the ruling that we want.
Right. And this is very important. Again, kanina lang it came up dun sa discussion ko with Yusek Claire Castro kasi I think she was just out of a conversation with Philhealth. Ang sinasabi ng Philhealth is, at least ngayon binabayaran na daw nila yung mga hindi nabayaran. Kasi di ba remember yung time ng pandemic, marami daw hindi nabayaran ng mga nurses and so, all I can say, sabi ko, wait, let's just have a long conversation after the Supreme Court ruling. Ganun na lang sabi ko. Hintayin na lang natin yung Supreme Court ruling kasi parang yun na yung line yata ng PhilHealth ngayon na, no, ang dami nga namin ginagawa, binabayaran namin. But actually, that's also a good reminder na ang dami hindi nabayaran, right? Nung panahon ng pandemic, right? There were so many nurses and health workers who went not compensated. By the way, this is not to say what PhilHealth is doing is okay, but actually it reminded me of that issue.
Yeah,
Just,
it's not only the health workers, but the
yeah,
hospitals themselves have a lot of receivables, and
yeah,
many were threatening to close down because
yeah.
they were not being paid by PhilHealth. So I think they've started to pay these hospitals already. So I think
At
life
least,
is easier for these hospitals.
at
But
least,
I
yeah,
think there's still a lot of
yeah, of course.
receivables by the hospitals.
Of course, of course. I'm just... Mahirap kasi talaga, Justice Carpio, like in one day, I meet someone from government, I meet you, and then I meet Ronald, like tatlong different arguments. Like, so I'm just trying to be fair. I make all of your arguments debate each other, and then I hope our like parang pangatlo or this is my third live today, just to put things into perspective kasi I'm trying to just get a this is my voters education, right? Now, Justice, by the way, last time, di ba, you confirmed to us that Supreme Court per operational reality, sinabihan niya yung mga lower courts na when it comes to issues, for instance, like cyber libel, do not go for the maximal criminal punishment, right? That you effectively, I won't use the word decriminalize it, but when it comes to punishment, you treat it like a civil suit, right?
Well, the guidance given to the lower courts is to impose a fine because the law says either a fine or imprisonment. So the court prefers fine. No? It's a guidance
It's
because
again,
that's the
yeah,
discretion of the judge because the law says fine or imprisonment or both.
or both, but more or less. So, in light of that, do you think it's still important for people to argue a decriminalization of the cyber libel? Because ang dali na weaponize yan eh. Kung sino-sino nang
Yeah.
kinakasuhan nga. Ako nga, sinabihan ko lang na Team Kiboloy, nagpatawa lang ako ng konti kasi nagpicture si Guanzon at saka si Jimmy Bondok. Di ba si Jimmy Bondok, defendant. Kanina si Guanzon was threatening me with libel suits. Sabi, ano ba naman yan? Lahat na lang tayo, mag-libel na lang tayo. So for me, I think this has to be settled by Supreme Court na masyado na weaponize ito eh. Ginagamit ito. I mean, I can just laugh it off because, okay, good luck, let's go. But, I think many ordinary people would be easily intimidated. Uy, libel kita, di ba? Cyber libel kita, di ba? I think this has created a lot of unnecessary stress for a lot of people, especially people who do not have the resources and voice. Do you think we should still take this to the Supreme Court and settle the issue? No more criminalization. Hindi lang yung internal
Well,
understanding, but talagang by virtue of law.
well, we need to have a law decriminalizing it.
Yeah.
So the ball is on the court of the of Congress.
Congress. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but as far as the Supreme Court is concerned, they have given their guidance.
So you cannot take this to the Supreme Court. There couldn't be
Well,
like positive
you
legislation by the Supreme Court on this issue. Sorry, maybe I'm being
well
too
you
American
can
about
say
this. Yeah.
you can try that to argue that this is unconstitutional, but
Ah.
I doubt it because
Right.
a lot of people have been convicted under that law. No.
So medyo we have crossed the ano na, the bridge na. So
Yeah,
kumbaga,
I think the better way to do it is to get Congress to decriminalize it. And there are many bills pending in Congress to decriminalize it.
you think President Marcos Jr. should make that one of his priorities after elections? I mean, most likely his allies are going to dominate the next Congress, right? Wouldn't that send a good signal that BBM is actually for freedom of expression?
Yeah, I'll be happy if he will certify it. No?
Yeah, well, no, I think we should put pressure on BBM. I think we should encourage BBM to decriminalize it because grabe, binaboy talaga itong issue na to since Duterte time. And ngayon, kung sino-sinong DDS, actually, interesting, marami na huli ngayon mga DDS. Speaking of which, actually si General Torre sued a DDS vlogger na parang pinapakita na patay na siya or mamamatay na siya sa ICU na siya. And then I asked him, okay lang ba yan? Kasi you're an official, you have power, hindi ba nakakatakot yan? Well, his defense was, enough is enough, and you know, let's see with the courts if talaga may basis yan. Ikaw, Justice, if you are a public figure, should there be a higher quantum of tolerance for salacious, if not almost libelous attacks? Kasi public
Well,
figure ka eh.
there is already, if you are a public official, the rule is there is no presumption of malice. The the uh, the ano the one suing the public official will have to overcome that we have to establish there was malice because if it's a libel by a private person against another private person, there is a presumption of malice by the person who made the libel. No.
So, mas
So
mataas yung threshold dun sa public
yes, the
figure.
threshold for public officials is higher. Public officials, because they are public officials, they should not be onion skin. That's the
Exactly.
rationale behind it.
And of course, not to leverage if not weaponize their bully pulpit, right? I mean, kung ikaw ay police chief, ikaw ay presidente, right? Nakakatakot yan, di ba? Kakasuhan ko ng someone at a high level. What about candidates, Justice Carpio? People are running for office.
Well,
It
you're a
doesn't
public,
that
you're a public figure already. So
public figure,
you're
exactly.
you're like a public official.
Exactly, right? I mean, and kasi yung ibang tao inisip nila baka naman gagamitin lang ito for mileage din, di ba? Kandidato ka, gusto mo ng mileage, magkakaso ka na kung sino-sino. I mean, we saw some cases like earlier this year, si Attorney Starr, di ba? Kinasuhan siya nung isang kandidato for mayor of anon dahil kinwestiyon yung New York Marathon something, right? Like, so parang some people are saying, di ba public figure, actually public official na pala yung tao na involved, di ba? So yun nga, the threshold, the quantum should be way, way, way higher. But again, this is a judicial question. But in the case of, for instance, General Torre, not to litigate for or against him, do you think the idea of people spreading misinformation that mamamatay na siya and that's affecting his family, that's injurious to his family, affecting the health of his family, do you think there might be enough reasons for a public official to respond kung sobrang injurious na ito, hindi lang sa kanya, pero sa buong... So it's not a question of just being onion skin. It's a question of baka ma-heart attack yung asawa or anak mo dahil akala nila totoo na mamamatay ka na pala or nasa ICU ka.
Yeah. Well, in a case like that, it looks like there's malice by the person who made the libelous statement because alam naman the country knows that he's not dying. I mean, he
Right.
appears every day in the news, no? So medyo you might be able to establish malice there, no?
And how do you differentiate? Because napansin ko, in the US, they have a very strong culture of satire, political satire. right? Philippines hindi pa masyado. How do you distinguish between satirical commentary or paminta versus malicious, salacious, libelous attack? In
Well,
theory again.
if it is satire, that means it's there's it's more difficult to establish malice if it's
Mm,
satirical, because I mean, by the nature of the statement, if it's satirical, it's really everybody is forewarned that this is a satire, no?
yeah, you're being cheeky, right? Or nagpapatawa ka or paminta ka. Which is gawain natin all the time here. Kaya sabi ko, nako, kailangan ko ng malaking legal team yata gano'n na marami tayong pinapaminta. Paminta, banat by na tayo, banat by Richard. Justice, now, speaking of Supreme Court in general, are you feeling more confident about, again, I know these are your former colleague, this is your beloved institution. Again, I'll be honest, right? Remember, we were talking when you were inside the Supreme Court. I won't say what you said, but back then, the Supreme Court, let's be honest, was like many people were saying, ano bang pinaggagawa ng Supreme Court natin noon? Tapos, nagsisigawan pa yung mga colleagues mo, di ba? I mean, I don't need to name drop, right? You think the Supreme Court has come long enough away from those days? Let's just say the less encouraging, less liwanag days. I'm asking you as a luminary, Justice Carpio, as a man who served one of his best years in that august institution.
Well, I think nothing, uh, nothing. There's been no deviation. Uh, the members of the court have been very circumspect. I don't think their behavior has changed. It's still the same. So I have no complaints. Of course, we just hope that for important cases, the
Yeah.
decision should come out faster, no? Because they affect political or social conditions that face us day to day, no? So, but more or less, there's a continuum. I do not see any
I'm not
the
sure Justice Scarpet continuum is reassuring enough, but continuum from a good base or like continuum from like I'm not sure base. Like sorry, I'm putting you on the spot, Justice Scarpet. I mean, I'm saying this because survey after survey we see ang baba ng approval ng Supreme Court justices. In fact, chief justices. In fact, most people don't even know who's the chief justice anymore, right? I mean, you are the
well,
most known justice, even though you didn't become the chief justice. Obviously, for the reason we all know, right? You were supposed. So
but
why?
Richard, that has always been the case. The Supreme Court always had in the past lower rating than the other two branches, especially the Supreme Court Chief Justice, because he really doesn't go out. I mean, and he
Mm,
has the awareness level is low, so the approval level is also low. The If you look at the awareness level, the Chief Justice has the lowest awareness
awareness
level
level,
among all
yeah. So
the
right.
heads of the three branches of government, no? So naturally, the approval rating will also be low.
So it's more of a communications issue then, right? So you think there should be may podcast na sila ngayon, 'di ba? Yung mga kaibigan natin sa ABS-CBN, they're now already working. So you have good spokesmen now. No? I think they're revamping
Yeah,
justice, yeah.
there are spooks, but because of the uh, they cannot express opinions because
Ongoing cases and all.
yeah,
Yeah.
these are pending cases, so they cannot have PR. So they just sit there and read cases and write decisions. So it's different. That's why the awareness level has always been low.
Been low, yeah. Okay, I want to ask about this because justice, like for instance, we see in a lot of democracies, including polarized democracies. For instance, the military has very high trust rating, even though no one knows who's the military chief. So sometimes, yung mga less politically known tend to have higher trust rating. I forgot to see the numbers for the judiciary, but ang taas ng tiwala sa ating sandatan lakas in some of the surveys I've seen throughout the past 10 years, no? Um, So what? Well, people don't know about the generals, but how come do you think they respect the generals? Because they're seen as professionals and they're defenders of the nation. I mean, how do you read that?
Well, because you don't read any misconduct. Very rare that
Mm,
their any misconduct is publicized. So, in other words, you don't hear bad things about them. So, the approval rating goes up in that case because they don't deal directly with the people.
there's a degree of
They are
separation.
yes. So that's why they have a higher approval rating than the police because the police deal with the people every day.
But apparently, the academe used to, well, at least until the service I saw a few years ago, academe tends to come second to military, interestingly. Mataas pa lang tiwala sa academe, even though walang may kilala sa mga academics. So, what I'm saying is that maybe what the Supreme Court could do is, because they never can compete at the popularity level, maybe they can compete at the level of above the fray credibility and authority, right? Which we see the academe and the military has. Or are you arguing that inherently it's going to be always hard because ang daming problema ng judiciary, there's always going to be divisive issues. So by nature, talaga may disadvantage, may structural disadvantage ang Supreme Court in terms of preference.
Yeah, in other countries, they also have a similarly low rating compared to the politicians
Yeah.
because they don't go out. They just issue decisions and they don't have a talk show. They don't attend talk shows, so
Yeah.
you hardly know them. That's why their awareness level is very low.
Can they like budots or like do dances or would that is there a code of conduct justice baka pwede mag budot si mga justice can't they do that they can't. I'm
No,
sure it will push
yeah,
up their awareness like immediately.
yeah, yun ang problema. The awareness level is very low.
Yeah. Yeah, ako yung mga budots dance ko kay Philip Salvador, nakita ko Ding Dong Dantes, mga comedian ko lang si Vice Ganda, matuwa diyan. So, I see the value with the budots. I'm just saying, do the budots but do also your assignment. So Justice, what do you have to say about some of the incoming senatorial candidates? Oh my goodness. I don't know if you've seen the memes of all of these incoming senators with their robe, di ba, na parang for the trial. And, well, one of them who's like front and center in the pictures we see is the one who's saying, pag tinanong siya, anong batas ang gagawin po pag nasa Senado ka, siya pa yung galit. Hindi, ikaw. Magaling ka magtanong eh. Anong batas ang gusto mo? Anong batas ang gusto mo? Yung parang estudyante na galit pa sa teacher. What do you have to say about, I mean, ako, tanggap ko na may budots na eh. Parang you need to entertain people. Pero yung tipong, sila pa yung galit na tatanungin mo anong gagawin nilang legislation. What do you think? What went wrong, Justice Carpio? How did we go from Jovito Salonga to did we go from Jovito Salonga to bigyan mo ng jacket? Yung ganyan. Yung
Well, legal luminaries at Shell Jogno couldn't make it anymore to the Senate, no? And I think there's only one who can make it now. I don't know. Pia Cayetano is the only lawyer that I can identify now who is in the winning circle, no?
I'm not sure about the luminary part, but yeah, she's a lawyer. Sorry, Justice. Do you think the problem here, Justice, because you know this way more than me, ako ang basa ko dito, Justice, is, syempre, yung mga siguro katulad nyo or katulad namin to a certain degree, natutuwa kami sa mga debate sa Senado dati when, Vito Salonga, yung parang Roman Senado, sometimes they would even use Latin terms. Ang point ko is, tayo lang nagkakaintindi nun eh. Feeling ko 99.9% of Filipinos could never really appreciate or understand it. Tingnan mo, kaya nga si Miriam Defensor yung pinaka-relatable, di ba? Kasi she would bring in fire, right? And joke and all. So feeling ko the Miriam Defensor phenomenon was already a warning na ang hanap ng tao sa senador ay hindi yung above the fray na unrelatable na sobrang galing sa Latin debates and all of that, but someone who's palaban, relatable, pero matalino rin. So, feeling ko kailangan natin yung parang Miriam Defensor types na may utak, may puso rin, tapos palaban rin. Hindi kaya, Justice, am I reading it wrong? Kasi that's the only way I can understand how did we go from Jovito Salonga's number 1 to to Bong Revilla as number one, to Robin Hood Padilla as number one, and most likely another Tulfo or whoever as number one, right? So, ako, that's how I understand it sociologically. Do I make sense, Justice?
Well, yeah. I mean, if you have someone who can relate to the voters,
Yeah.
majority of the voters, of course it will help. But not everybody is given that kind of talent. So,
But Justice, I saw you doing TikTok. I mean, I understand that not everyone can dance as well as me and Bong Revilla. I get that. But my point is, like, look at you, Justice. Remember, like 5, 10 years ago when I was interviewing in the Supreme Court, di ba, we're so uptight and all. Tingnan mo naman ngayon, parating topic natin, Harry Roque pa lang, tawanan na tayo. Don't you think we have come a long way? Na in a way, maybe Justice, we're showing that actually you can be a high caliber legal mind, political mind, whatever. But if you're willing to adjust a little bit, baka naman. I mean, of course, we're not gonna stoop down, di ba?
yeah.
Pero yung konting pitik, di ba? Like for instance, yung TikTok series na ginawa mo, Justice, with our good friends, daming natuwa doon. And sabi ko, si Justice Carpio actually, hindi naman politikong-politiko, pero he can ride, di ba? He can ride the culture, he can be relatable. You tell me, Justice, I mean, you're the luminary here.
Yeah, I mean, I can do that because I'm not holding public office anymore. I mean, I'm freer. So, but when I was in the court, you have to be more
Respectable.
proper.
Like, respectable. Like, I get what you're saying. Kasi yung iba nasa Senado na, presidente na nga, hindi na nga respectable. Nagbubudots-budots pa rin. I mean, oh my goodness. I know, Justice, yun nga. Kaya nga sabi ko, how can we make the good people relatable pero at the same time respectable, 'di ba? Yung balance, 'di ba? Relatable pero respectable din. Kasi maraming relatable pero hindi na respectable. Kaso kung kalaban mo respectable na hindi relatable, mananalo yung hindi respectable. Kasi more you get what I'm saying, Justice? In the battle of information and popularity, may advantage talaga yung relatable over respectable. So, feeling ko ang challenge sa atin lahat, obviously, you're a luminary, I'm nowhere close to that, but is that we need to find that Goldilocks, di ba? Level between respectability and relatability. No, Justice?
Yeah, but it takes time. You have to
Experiment, yeah.
you have to cultivate that, and the people must have watch you.
Yeah.
On TV, on talk shows, and finally they understand what kind of a person you are. No, that element of because the first thing is to be known,
Yeah.
and then the second thing is to be endeared.
Right.
When they see that may puso ka, that you have you're a patriot, may puso ka, then you become endeared. And yun
Yeah.
ang mahirap, no? To
You
reach
to be
that
endearing and
level.
all, no? Justice, I want to ask you on that actually, kahapon, we were having exploratory talks with fellow millennials kasi sabi ko, matatanda na kami, almost 40 na kaming lahat pero wala pa rin sa amin pumapasok sa politika. So we were looking at the case of Thailand na muntik naging prime minister yung si Pita na
Yes.
41, future forward. Macron became president at my age, 37, 38. He became already French president back in 2017. So sabi na, bakit ganyan sa Pilipinas? And then sabi ko, wait lang, before talking about millennials, what about the Gen Zs? Anong gusto ng Gen Zs? Alam mo yung mga gusto ng Gen Zs daw, Justice? Gusto nila yung mga authentic tao na may wisdom and magaling sa mga kape. Yung mga ganon. Yung mga, like, Gen Zs love coffee. So I was thinking, actually, Justice Carpio, you can make like a coffee series habang you're making coffee and then you explain like international law or something like that. Yung medyo gimmicky pero relatable. I noticed that, for instance, when I do with comedians, with Cool Pals. By the way, my upcoming with Cool Pals, and also Justice Carpio, they'll interview you. Kasi I think one way to get supporters from Gen Z, actually matatanda itong mga comedians na to, pero yung followers nila, Gen Z. Right? 20s, teenagers, ganon. And yun, parang humor, entertainment, pero may sense pa rin. It's basically like a Joe Rogan, but a kind of a less serious Joe Rogan even. Na sensible pa rin, na progressive. So, ako, suggestion ko, Justice Carp, yung aficionado mo sa coffee, you can use that very well. Like while making coffee, you teach people, ganun din ang batas, ganito, ganyan. I'm just giving a suggestion because feeling ko justice, I think you have it in you. Hindi naman showman level na Donald Trump, but something is going on there.
Well, I tried already TikTok, so
Exactly, you're already
matututo na rin.
there. Exactly. Kaya nga sabi ko, if gagawa tayo ng partido natin na move forward, future forward, it will be millennials and young, and then your generation, Justice, the luminaries. Because have you noticed, ang pinakabenta sa mga Gen Z voters, Corbyn, Bernie Sanders, right? Yung mga seniors who are actually seen as authentic and real. Sila yung pinakagusto ng mga Gen Zs kasi ayaw nila yung mga bolero, pa-cute. Ayaw nila yon. Ayaw nila yung, yes, we can, everything will be fine. No, they want like almost like a Noah's Ark kind of wisdom, right? So kaya feeling ko, Justice Gar, malaking potential mo sa Gen Z. Let's have a separate discussion on that we can work together to win over the Gen Z. So, no, I'm very honest. I'm really studying this, looking at the analytics and studies, and asking our friends in some of the survey agencies to look at this. Kasi market research lang tinitignan namin so far. And US and British. Ikaw, what do you think, Justice? Am I being a little bit too overexcited because of the coffee here? It's like, sorry, bud.
Well, ako naman, I learned TikTok because I have to relate the West Philippine Sea issue to the
Yeah.
masa. No, so it's not because I want to run. I mean, I have this advocacy that I want to explain the West Philippine Sea issue to everybody. So I do lectures. These are lectures in universities, but you have to go down also and break it down to the ideas, the issues, more digestible by everyone. So that's the reason why
Yeah.
I went into TikTok, but it's not to run for office. I mean,
But Justice, for
I,
me, like, first you have to establish a new discourse, no? Before even talking about running or new party or something. Like, for instance, the Unmarched Party of Macron or the Move Forward, Future Forward. Yung una nilang ginawa is barangay by barangay, nag-listening tour sila, kinausap nila yung tao, nag-analytics sila, nag-TikTok sila, groundwork. Groundwork. And part of the groundwork, Justice, right, is to make those TikTok educational videos for people to realize they don't have to just watch Robin Hood Padilla or I don't know, whatever, or DFA statements to understand that there are people like you, luminaries, who are willing to reach out. Kaya nga, basically, what I'm saying, Justice Carpio, is please tuloy mo lang yung ginagawa mo. And I think your coffee making connoisseur side will come very handy, especially with Gen Z voters. And we'll need that a lot. I mean, maybe magpapaturo ako sa'yo later on, Justice, at the highest level, no? So this brings us to the last part of our discussion, Justice Carpio. Speaking of showman, patriotism, and, well, let's talk about it. MAGA. What is your read of the berating of Zelensky the other week and the repercussions it's having all around the world? I mean, just to frame this, Justice Carpio, there's one school of thought saying that okay lang yan, ganyan talaga, sorry na lang sa Ukraine, kailangan talaga itapon yung Ukraine kasi US has to lighten its load to focus on Asia. Basically, let's just prioritize Asia. In fact, there are people who are called prioritizers, like Elbridge Colby, for instance, he had the Senate hearing, na parang, tanggapin lang natin, the US cannot have multiple wars being funded at the same time, and China is just so big to be left on its own, right? And then there's even a more imaginative school of thought, which is like, this will be the reverse Nixon, right? Like, we will get Russia to make a deal with Iran, and then Russia and Iran will get out of China's, and then we'll isolate China, right? There's even a more interesting imaginative one. And then there's the opposite of that. And I had an interview with The Economist magazine because they were trying to quote from one of my articles there. In that interview, sabi ko, there's another fear, which is, I don't know, Justice, I forgot the German term, yung the year of three Kaisers. Parang Tri-Kaiser-Jahr. Remember, after the 1848 revolution, the leaders of Russia, Austria-Hungary, and Germany, yung tatlong illiberal leaders nagsama to defeat the liberal forces. Some are saying, what if this is really about Trump loving Putin and Xi Jinping, and three of them will do a Yalta 2.0, as we discussed last time, right? That this is really a restructuring of the entire order. And then there's a fourth school of thought saying that, no one knows. This is Trump. He just had a tariff on Mexico the other day. Now he removes it. Sabog lang yon. We really cannot say much. So let's just play it by the ear and respond accordingly. Having said that, we've been having discussions. Some of our allies some of fellow US allies are panicking. In South Korea, they're openly talking about building their own nuclear weapon, and they're just one screwdriver away, their threshold nuclear state. France openly talking about, well, being France, they love being independent from US, at least rhetorically. Macron is coming over soon for Shangri-La dialogue, maybe also Manila. And then Friedrich Merz, the incoming Chancellor of Germany, someone who worked in BlackRock, US based, long time, big transatlantic guy, now saying he will 100% make sure that Germany will be independent from US to the best of his ability under his chancellorship. I mean, these are big statements. And lastly, Justice Carpio, Ambassador Babe Romualdez, right? He said like,
Yeah.
parang the iron part is not very gold, maybe it's a bit copper. You know what I'm saying? Like and then our good friend si General Mike Loico, I hope I didn't put him in trouble. I quoted him in my Nikkei Asia piece. Basically his point, in the end we will fight for our own, right? So when you even have, like dyed in the wood Filipino top officials or generals who are involved in the US Philippine relations, who are coming out and saying this is not just berating Zelensky, something bigger is going on. Do you think Justice this is vindicating basically what you have been saying, or actually both of us have been saying for the past 2 months or so?
Well, the what happened there, what we saw in the Oval House, uh, the Oval Room, is that Trump flipped what actually happened. He said Ukraine was the invader. I mean, how could Ukraine invade itself? I mean, it was obviously Russia that was the invader. Second, he said that it was the fault of Ukraine. I mean, we all know that it couldn't have been the fault of Ukraine. Ukraine here is the victim of
Right.
aggression. And remember the Budapest Memorandum, Russia,
1994, yeah.
yeah, US and UK guaranteed the territorial integrity and sovereignty of Ukraine in exchange for Ukraine to give up its nuclear weapons. Because when the Soviet Union collapsed, Ukraine was one of the had the largest stockpile, one of the largest stockpile of nuclear
I think
weapons.
second or a third,
A
third in the
third,
world. Yeah, third
a
in the
third
world.
of the
Jeez.
nuclear
Oh, yeah,
stockpile of
yeah,
the USSR
yeah.
was inherited by Ukraine. So Ukraine gave all of that, gave up all its nuclear weapons in exchange for a guarantee by Russia. And the first country to invade Ukraine was Russia. So Trump should know this. That's why the British, I admire the British because they're very steadfast in their commitment that
Yeah.
they will guarantee the territorial integrity and the
Of Ukraine. The
independence of
king,
Ukraine.
right? The king met Zelensky right
Yeah.
away. And although si Trump, he made fun of Starmer, di ba? Sabi niya, can you take on Russia on your own? Di ba? Ang bully
So
niya talaga. Yeah.
so what
Yeah.
we've seen is that the leader of the U.S. is siding with Putin, who has invaded Ukraine, and that picture has changed everything. And people in Taiwan, in South Korea, in Japan, and even here, we're starting to doubt now the U.S. commitment. Even Babes Romualdez said it's not ironclad anymore. So I think this
Yeah.
is going to be big because this will start the shift. Even Europe now, uh, France has offered to provide the nuclear umbrella to
Yeah.
everybody
Everyone.
in EU. And I think France will have to increase its stockpile of nuclear weapons to do that.
That's very important.
But
I talked to some visiting Europeans from not France but neighbor, and they said there's no way we can talk about a European defense policy unless the nuclear policy issue is addressed. Meaning, it's a joint nuclear
yeah,
umbrella. That's very
yeah,
important
yeah,
point. Yeah,
because they have to be nuclear armed because Russia has the
nuclear armed. Yeah,
largest arsenal of nuclear weapons. So this could change the division in the world. No,
yeah,
the people will rely less on the U.S. because it has become unpredictable. and even Canada will strike a deal now with EU. It's really unfortunate that this is happening
Yeah.
because at a time when Russia is about to collapse, uh, Trump is giving a second wind to Russia.
Yun ang hindi ko maintindihan, di ba, Justice? Art of the deal. Where's the art of the deal? You're actually bugbog sarading Russia, 600,000 casualties. Their economy is, of course, not collapsed, but, Russia is poor compared to Europeans. Their per capita is one-fourth of an average European. And so actually you can juice out Russia, right? Russia is in a position that it could be forced to and yet it's Ukraine which is being bullied to give more concessions. Speaking of concessions, Justice Carpio, like what is your read of the fact that Trump was not willing to provide any security guarantee? And it looks like, correct me if I'm wrong, it looks like the emerging theory is this: we will never give you a security guarantee, but if you give us half of your mines, once our companies are there, because our companies are there, we'll make sure Russia doesn't take away your land. It's like choose between your colonial diba? Para masters ganun na lang, diba?
Yeah, actually, Trump and Putin have the same ambition, the same purpose. Putin is after the rare earth minerals of Ukraine. And when Trump learned about it, he said, I will
Mauna na.
do the same.
Mauna
So,
si Mayor, yung ganun. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, paghatian nila yung
Yeah.
rare earth minerals of Ukraine. And
Grabe.
Trump was saying, oh, but the Europeans did not give aid; they gave loans. And then he was rebuffed by Macron, by Stammer, that no, we donated. We did not. We're not collecting this amount after the war. So, and still, Trump wants to collect after the war. I mean,
Grabe,
this is really strange.
Is it strange? Because they say ang idol niya talaga is William McKinley, aside from Andrew Jackson, right? And William McKinley is someone familiar to us in the Philippines. He essentially ensured America's full colonization of the Philippines, right? And McKinley he had his own version of Doge, right? Cutting down government spending, not bailing out banks, and he was imperialist, pushed the boundaries of U.S. empire, make sure it consolidated. So the way Trump talks about Greenland, he reiterated that the other day dun sa kanyang speech, State of the Union speech. Mukhang he's not joking around. He really wants Greenland. And Panama
Yeah.
was forced to give it up to BlackRock, yung part of the port facility that China was trying to operate.
Yeah, for me that's the biggest problem facing us, because here is the U.S. trying to seize territory belonging to another country. It's exactly China trying to seize territory belonging to the Philippines. So how can we ask help from the U.S.? How can the U.S. help us when they're doing exactly the same thing that the Chinese are doing? I mean, they have the same mindset now. Wala na. They're not defending the free world. They're now, it has become an imperialist state, just like Russia and China.
Well,
That's the big
to
problem.
be fair to
How can
China, for Mr. Wang
how
Yi,
can we ask the U.S. to be our defense partner against China?
but isn't it weird?
Yun ang problema natin ngayon.
Pero
That's why even babes start different leadership now in the U.S.
I'm
I
sure.
mean, what
Yeah.
if presidency? Because presidency has offered this to Obama and to Biden. Why don't we just divide the Asia Pacific?
Yeah.
All the
Condominium.
waters and islands within the first island chain, between the coast of China and the first island chain will be ours. The rest will be yours. And I think that's a deal that I think I can visualize that Trump could accept that deal. I mean, Obama rejected it. Biden rejected, but Trump, this is that what he's doing to Ukraine is even worse.
Actually, there's a term for that, the Mar-a-Lago Accord. There's already, yeah, just as we
Yeah,
speak,
yeah.
there's a conversation about the Mar-a-Lago Accord, which is basically a Yalta 2.0 potentially, whereby
Yes.
Xi Jinping and Trump will divide the Pacific. This is your sphere of influence. This is my sphere of influence. So, paano ang Pilipinas? Nasa gitna tayo ng dalawang
Yeah,
higante na yan.
we lose the West Philippine Sea.
But and then the
We will,
Philippine Sea will be dominated by US, right? Kasi that's the Pacific.
yeah, in the Pacific side, that's the U.S. So we're sandwiched. And the
Yeah.
Vietnamese are saying we become landlocked because right up beyond the territorial sea is already the 9 dash line, the 10 dash line.
I can understand
And
actually. Yeah, I mean, I understand Babe Romualdez also reaction because he has been in the Oval Office. He has met Trump in the past. We had that conversation. I will have him soon, hopefully, also on this podcast. So I think it was also quite visceral because Justice. I mean, it was not only JD Vance, right, and Trump. Even I don't know if you know this person, yung boyfriend ni Marjorie Green Taylor, yung nasa likod, yung biniberate niya, bakit ka, don't you have a suit, Mr. President? Why don't you wear, like, yung mga parang SMNI reporter lang nila doon binabara, binibirate si Zelensky. That's crazy. Parang ano to, bastusan na to eh, 'di ba? Kaya ang dami it was very traumatic for a lot of people watching it.
yeah, but I'm happy that the Europeans have united and have now a program to revive their arms industry. I think they're talking of $1 trillion, almost $1 trillion, and a lot of that will go to Ukraine in terms of weapons. No, so I think they're stepping up because, well, bottom line, it's the Ukrainians who are really defending Europe now with their lives.
Yeah, they're doing the
And
killing
so,
for the rest of the NATO, right? I mean, they're doing the dirty job basically,
yeah,
beating down the
and
Russians. Yeah.
and all that the Ukrainians are asking, just give us the weapons. We will fight and die to defend Europe. That's
And,
why everybody there, especially the small states, they're giving everything to Ukraine. But Trump doesn't see it that way. Trump looks at the map and says, "Oh, we're too far away. It doesn't bother. It doesn't. So we don't need to spend here." Because Trump, that's Trump is we look at the dollar side.
or the renminbi sign. Kaya nga sabi ko, China can offer a lot to Trump. It has the biggest consumer market next to the US. It can offer big trade deals, industrial
But
policy concessions.
the tariff war,
Yeah.
it's backfiring on him big time. He's really embarrassed now because he has to pause and pause forever this his 25% tariff on the Canadians because his own consumers will suffer more.
And it will kill the car industry in Michigan because a lot of inputs of the cars in
Yes,
Michigan are from
everything.
Canada.
Yeah, the parts are made in Canada.
Yeah. It's
So I mean, he did not think this through, and it's a wonder to me why the people, his think tank, did not tell him that you cannot push this that far because they will they will call our bluff and they know that we'll suffer more.
Well, I don't know about the think tank. If you look at Lighthizer, forget about some of the guys inside. He's saying we just have to restructure the entire global economy to reflect the American interest. I mean, they're
They
basically,
cannot do that anymore.
well,
I mean,
they think it's still Reagan's time. That's the problem. They don't realize U.S. may be number one, but everyone has closed the gap. Everyone has caught up. Europe is already the third or second largest economic bloc. Hindi na yung putsyugi ng Asia. And India is gonna be the next big one. I think there is a denial problem here, right? I think the U.S. thinks it's still the 1980s.
yeah, and the U.S. is heavily indebted. I don't see how they're, there's well, they're spending too much on defense that everything is eaten up by their defense spending.
Justice, we have a lot of our MAGA friends here saying, "Oh, but Trump is bringing $1 trillion from Saudi Arabia. He's bringing like, like, yeah, like the running joke is just kunyari lang sabihin mo you're offering billions. Like, come on, I mean, you must be a fool to believe that. Actually, Saudi Arabia has its own many serious fiscal problems. Yung Neom City nila that we're supposed to spend 501 trillion,
Yeah.
they're cutting that back because this it's all smokes and mirrors, right? Justice, it's all performative, right? It's just all a show, like I'm strong, and then yeah, and then this, and then everyone is pretending they'll invest in the U.S. I mean, what I noticed also is, in fairness, even the Japanese are fighting back, right? So Elbridge Colby, during his Senate hearing 2 days ago, said Japan has to increase its defense spending to 3% and Taiwan 10%. Thank God he didn't mention the Philippines. I think they understand our limitation. That I appreciate about them. But immediately, Ishiba, the Prime Minister of Japan, said, no one will tell us what to do with our defense spending. We will decide what is our defense spending. Do you see a ripple effect that what's happening in Europe could eventually come here? Because Japan is a rich country, South Korea is a wealthy country, both are nuclear threshold states. India doesn't give a heck, they're their own boss. Australia at some point will have to make tough decisions. Do you think that we all have to engage in what I call collective strategic bargaining, meaning all of these US allies na may sariling issues with the US, not to mention, they have to come together and work together more. Para lang there's more power, there's more bargaining chip.
Well, I think the first reaction of all of these countries in Asia will have to increase their defense spending. I mean, uh, the U.S. Nuclear umbrella is no longer an ironclad commitment, and they will have to spend for their defense now. And I think that will happen to Japan, to Taiwan, and to South Korea, and even to us. We're now talking. Uh, I mean, we cannot rely on the U.S. 100% now. So
Right.
we have to spend more. I've already recommended that Congress should forego their pork butter for the next 25 years and
Baka magpalit
spend it.
baka magpalit career na yung mga kaibigan natin. Medyo baka mag-migrate na sila. Parang, wait na, wala na tayong pera makukuha dito. Just as last point, let's talk brass tacks. Yes, we cannot rely on US fully 100%. I mean, maybe not, right? But you'll be foolish to think that that will be the case without having any real assurance given everything. But obviously, to go from now to where we have sufficient credible defense capability, that's gonna take years, like Justice. So
Yeah,
how do you make that difficult transition? That's gonna be tricky because China is there and China is growing every single day.
we just have uh, to ask our congressman to forego their pork barrel. That's what I've been recommending. I mean,
Pwede,
because that's total waste.
can
I
we also
mean,
sell them, as we can export them, like maybe we can export our political dynasties, maybe it will
a
help.
retired military officer computed it. If only Congress will give up its pork barrel, we will be okay. We will have fighter jets, we will have
Yeah.
submarines, we have more warships. If only they will. And
We,
I look at the figures, it's doable.
yeah, we'll easily have 10 to 15 billion dollars a year to spend on on our defense. We'll be top 15 defense spenders. I mean, we'll be at the level of Poland, if not, I'm saying, like Turkey or Iran, right? That's incredible. Now, actually, just as we're half joking about this, but I think this just means business as usual is not sustainable. Not only in terms of good governance, but also in terms of national security, right? If we just keep on going with the flow, Philippines will never have enough resources to invest in itself and will be hopelessly dependent on those who may not be so dependable after all, right? So that's an existential question.
Yes, my thesis is do if we do what we've been doing, business as usual, we are certainly going to lose the West Philippine Sea to China. That's
Province
the
of
bottom
China.
line.
Province of China. Province of China.
Well,
Mahirap.
China might not invade Luzon or Palawan, but definitely we will lose the West Philippine Sea.
And trillions of dollars of resources and all of
Trillions
that.
of
Yeah.
dollars.
If you don't care about territorial integrity, just care about the money and the tilapia that they will... Lulutuin tayo sa sarili natin mantika, basically. Yan ang mangyayari sa atin. On that note, Justice Carpio, I didn't want to say more. Baka ma-cyber libel tayo. May nagsabi kasi, just very quick point, sabi ko, di ba sabi ng surveys, ayaw ng mga voters ng pro-China candidates, bakit yung isa, ang taas niya sa rankings? And then may nagsabi, ikaw na magsabi. Sabi ko, hindi, ikaw magsabi. Baka mas-cyber lang. Justice Carpio, from a legal standpoint, how can you call out some of these candidates, let's just say, had questionable credentials on defending West Philippine Sea without getting cyber libeled? Is there a way to do that? Or should
Well,
you
you
take the
just say
risk?
that They're followers of former President Duterte, who has repeatedly professed that he loves President Xi, that we should be a province of China. And these are his followers, his close-in followers. So
Right.
they will also follow him.
Right, right. And hindi ka ma-cyber libel if you say
Ah,
that.
yeah, because it's, I don't think so.
It's
It's
open.
election and
Yeah, I was telling some people like, call out, di ba? Call out. Kasi, puro, hindi, Filipinos will not vote. Pero sabi ko, but look at the rankings. Ay, you see, ano, like, baka ma-cyber libel. Eh di sabihin mo, ito yung track record niya without saying, tuta to ng China. Don't put the name and that term, but, you can say it in other ways. Kasi parang feeling ko, puro si Bato lang ina-attack eh, di ba? I mean, I think people can guess what I'm talking about. Si Bato lang ina-attack so far eh, and even I me to a certain degree, but other people are getting away. Justice Carpio, if I can put it that way. On that note, Justice Carpio, thank you so much. Actually, I'll tell you what, people are commenting, hindi pa 10 p.m. na dyan, hindi pa pagod si Justice Carpio. Justice Carpio, naabusa ka ba dito sa show natin? Or I hope you truly enjoy what we're doing here, Justice.
yeah, yeah, of course. So enjoy it.
I hope so. I hope so. Because sometimes parang hindi kaya parang na-exploit namin si Justice. Si Ronald kasi siyang mismong volunteer. Hindi na tayo mag-zoom mamayang 11 p.m. O bahala ka basta, di ba? Pero with you, Justice, minsan sabi ko parang baka napipilitan ka lang sa amin. Thank you so much, Justice Carpio. Alam mo, you have no idea how much people love it. It's a very close fight between you, General Torre, and distant third si Ronald Llamas in terms of favorite co-host. Hindi na kayo guest co-host ng tawag sa inyo eh. So, thank you so much, Justice Carpio, for another
Okay.
amazing episode together. Ang dami natin i-discuss, but of course, I'm proud. Finally, mukhang medyo may confirmation tayo na lumalapit na si Harry Roque sa ating bansa. Within the area of responsibility na natin siya. Malapit na. Malapit na. Pag-asa, ma-detect na siya sa pag-asa. Harry Roque is getting closer to our area of responsibility. On that note, thank you very much, Justice. And God willing, see you soon in person, hopefully, for our special FY series. And more than happy to also have our own podcast series with Academia Filipina. Thank you so much, Justice. Mabuhay po kayo. And tuloy nyo lang yung TikTok and soon I'll learn more coffee making from you. God bless po.
Okay, thank you, Richard. Thank you for having me.
Salamat po. Thank you very much, guys. Maraming salamat. Maraming salamat. Great people. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I told you guys. Ang dami nagtatanong, hindi ba pagod si Justice ka na, guys? I'll tell you what, when you're with Richard Haydarian sa sobrang bardagulan, ma-energize ka rin. I'll tell you what, I feel so blessed today kasi ang ganda ng discussion namin with Yusek Castro kanina, and ngayon naman with Carpio, purong letter C, no? And I honestly, I feel so blessed to have this kind of opportunities, to have this back-to-back conversation with these great people, hindi lang great minds, but great people and great patriots. Kaya magpasalamat kayo na may chance kayo to have that immediate conversation. Oh, yun pala, hindi ko pa pala nilabas yung kay attorney kay Yusek Castro. I'll try to get it out this weekend at the late or Monday on the latest, yung high quality and all of that. So don't worry about it. But what I'm saying is that at least, guys, you can eavesdrop basically. It's almost like you're here with me listening and talking to these folks. Don't worry, a finalized version of this with the beautiful faces of our guests will be out. So, okay, magalit. Alam ko, naiinis na kayo na ako lang nakikita nyo. This is just my other version. Like, ito yung dirty back kitchen version. But don't worry, the nice versions will be uploaded soon. So, on that note, thank you very much. And yes, continue. Continue po tayo sa ating prayers for Pope Francis. And continue also prayers na yung direction ng ating Catholic Church, ating minamahal na Pope, ating minamahal na Office of Papacy will be consistently in the direction that really reflects our era and the interest of really the people who need the guidance of the Church in these difficult times of transition and all of that. Okay, I'll not say more, baka maging debate na yan. Thank you so much, guys. Bukas naman, simulan naman natin yung R&D, Research and Development, Richard and Dino. Pag-usapan natin, balikan natin itong issue ng Move Forward, Future Forward Party. To be honest, we're already talking about setting up our own party soon. Maybe not tomorrow, maybe not next year, but we're saying maybe it's time for the Philippines to also have its own version of a kind of an en marche or future forward kind of young people, young leaders kind of political parties. Na para hindi lang isang tao na Vico Soto lang or si ganyan lang. We really need party of a whole generation of young leaders in addition to great luminaries like Justice Carpio, all of us working together para naman finally people will have some sort of alternative. So, ay natin umasa lang sa isang tao lang, sa isang messiah or isang savior. No, what we want, guys, is actually a party, a movement. Yun pong gusto natin. At yeah, exactly, ayaw natin ng kulto, katulad ng fill in the blanks. Salamat. God bless. And who knows, sana papayag si Ma'am Rowena Guanzon. I said I'm open to having a podcast with her. No problem at all. Kinall out ko lang naman na sabi ko, bakit ka naman makipag-picture kay Jimmy Bondon na ganyan? Kandidato siya, defending security. Yun lang naman sinabi natin, di ba? Anyway, I'm more than open to discuss, including yung kanyang party, because I think she's running for something, important, PWD, for people with disabilities. I think that's a very important and good advocacy. So I'm open to also discussing those things. So the invitation is open. Let's see if papatulan ng ibang tao. But on my part, ako, relax lang ako. I call out here and there, but our intention here is always good, right? And yes, satirical in a certain sense. We use satire sometimes to just nudge things in the right direction. Maraming salamat. God bless and talk to you